Welcome, everyone. We'll just give everyone a few moments to join us today as they enter into our webinar. But if you're here for the Aplusify Salsa webinar, you're in the right place. Just give us a few moments while people join us. All right. I'm sure more people will join us, but I wanted to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is an Aplusify webinar, and we love hosting these educational sessions so that you can learn from our experts and also our partners. Today, this is the session for mission-focused data visualization, reports and dashboards using Salesforce and Salsa Engage. Before I introduce you to our speakers, we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session today, so everyone will be muted. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat section of this webinar panel at any time, or you can also use the Q&A feature of Zoom, so you can ask those questions there as well. Either way, we'll get to you. We'll try to get to you real time as we notice your questions pop up. We'll also leave room at the end of the webinar for you to ask questions as well. All right, and we are recording this session, so if you wanted to revisit it, you can do that later so you can focus on the content for today. All right, well, let me get started here. This is, again, the mission-focused data visualization. That's a mouthful webinar. It's about reports and dashboards using both Salesforce and Salsa Engage. Today, I've got with me Neeraj Garg, who is the Chief Technology Officer for Aplusify. He leads a team of over 250 developers that work on just helping nonprofit organizations on their Salesforce instance. So he's seen it all. We also have Rachel Slattery, who is the partner manager over at Salsa. She's also seen it all from the Salsa end and has a lot to share with you today. Excited to have you both. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rena.
You know, what's great about these two platforms, you've got Salsa, which really caters to the nonprofit world of talking about fundraising, volunteer engagement, and there's so many data points and so many reports and so many details that you can pull out of the system. So what I think is great is some of these reports and dashboards that you really can pull together and show a picture. You know, they say a picture is 1,000 words, where I think exactly is what we're going to be talking about today. And then Neeraj, you're going to be talking about the Salesforce end of it. You know, Salsa sits on top of Salesforce, and how does that look like? So really excited for you guys to just jump in there and tell us what you've got for us.
Okay, well, I can kick it off and kind of set the stage for Salsa Engage. I think we have a mix of users here today. Some folks might already be using the combined option. Some people might be here just coming to learn about what this offering is. So as Vinu stated, there's the Salsa Engage platform that sits on top of Salesforce, and that is the integration that Salsa has built directly to Salesforce. So with Salsa Engage, just to give everybody an overview, Engage is an online digital marketing platform for nonprofits. So you use Salsa Engage to communicate with your supporters. We've got text message functionality, email blasts, we have email series, we have notifications, all of the internal communication with those notifications and external communications with your supporters and donors. We also do forms. So forms inside of Salsa Engage live on your website. These are things like fundraising forms, peer-to-peer fundraising forms, which is a really hot topic right now, donation pages, event registration pages, things like that. And then we've got the generic sign-up pages too. People can submit their information. And then the advocacy side of things too, communicating with your supporters so that they can message legislators on your behalf, petitions, all that good stuff. So with all of this, you're collecting all of this data on your supporters. They're submitting information to you each time you interact, whether that's a donation that they've given, they signed up to be a volunteer, they opened an email from you. All of that is data, and that's good stuff to have. But it's also really important to be able to funnel it into your record of database, the database of truth, which in this case is Salesforce. So on the next slide here, what we're demonstrating with this graphic is how, and you can go, thank you. Thank you, Neeraj. What we're demonstrating here is how it kind of all fits together. So on the left-hand side, everything that I just explained on Salsa Engage, event registration forms, donations, peer-to-peer, advocacy, and the communication side is paired with Salesforce, your database, your CRM. And inside Salesforce, and Neeraj will talk more about this, this is where you can get the full picture of your campaigns. This is where the online information from Salsa Engage is being paired with all of your offline data too, that you're tracking in Salesforce. So Salsa Engage is meant to be paired with a CRM, whether that's Salsa CRM, Salesforce, Razor's Edge, whatever it might be. It's meant to be paired with something. And a lot of the market is using Salesforce. And so in that middle column there, what we're demonstrating is which fields are being passed back and forth or one way. So online activities that come through Salsa Engage are synced with campaigns in Salesforce. Online donations are synced with opportunities. New supporters are both ways. So if you add a supporter in Salesforce, it will get added to Salsa Engage, and the reverse is also true. Offline donations that you're collecting in Salesforce can be pushed to Salsa Engage, so you can run some very specific targeting for people that you might be emailing. And then offline campaigns that you're tracking in Salesforce can be pushed to Salsa Engage, and we categorize those as groups, again, for segmentation, communicating with your supporters. So that's the ecosystem to kind of set the stage with why someone might be using Salesforce with Salsa Engage and the benefits of Salsa Engage too. So I'll pass it over to Neeraj now.
I think that sums it all, Rachel, and I think you have beautifully done that. So obviously this column in the middle, which specifies how these mappings are done with Salsa Engage and Salesforce, I think that is that says about everything with the integration between Salsa Engage and Salesforce. So then in the next few slides, we will just see how Salsa Engage seamlessly integrates with Salesforce, and then we are going to discuss more about how this integration helps you in understanding and gaining insights into different marketing activities, which we can actually use to enhance our automated marketing and other stuff. So Salsa Engage, unlike other platforms, does a very seamless integration with Salesforce. So as Rachel pointed out in the previous slide, you have mappings between these two different systems. So you have Salesforce CRM, you have got Engage, which is there. And as you can see, you have all these contact fields which are there in Salesforce, which actually map to the Engage supporter fields. And when you are actually integrating two systems, it's the flow of data between both these systems. So your contact records will flow into the Engage supporter fields, and your anything that gets updated in the Engage supporter fields will actually flow into the Salesforce. So what happens is you have the best of both these systems, and then you have reports and dashboards which you can actually pick up from a common database which has both the Salesforce contacts and Engage records. And this bidirectional data integration can be configured very easily, and it actually helps you segment your customers, automate this process, and you can actually pinpoint like what marketing initiatives you should take to enhance the activities, which we will further see in the further slides. Now, I think the most important challenge that every association face during an integration is how do we actually sync better between the two systems. Now, there is a lot of script writing involved when you sync data. There is a lot of data cleansing activity that gets involved. But with Salsa Engage, you don't have to invest a lot of time and money on it because it is configured in a fashion that makes things very easy, as you can see in the screen, right? So you can easily set the data sync process. It's automated. Now you can set it either weekly or daily or after every 5 minutes. And all you have to do is just do some configurations in it without actually building any kind of APIs to it. And it's like we have tested that because we have integrated Salsa Engage for a lot of our customers with Salesforce, and it's very easy process. It's all configurable. It's all screen based. You just have to do some configuration settings, and then the data easily syncs between these two systems. And I think that is the beauty of Salsa Engage, that you don't have to do any kind of manual tedious process to sync data between the two systems. Obviously, you need to do a field mapping. You need to do a kind of data cleansing activity before doing that sync. But the entire sync process is all screen based. You have these user interfaces which you can actually use to get this sync done. So it's very user friendly, and I think that is the best thing about Salsa Engage, that everything has been designed so perfectly so that user does not have to waste time in getting this data sync process and getting this stuff done manually. Everything is automated and you can easily do that. So obviously, when you are syncing two systems, most of the systems do require a middleware in between. So you need to integrate APIs. So either you use some middleware called Zapier or something like that. But with Salsa Engage, it's just hassle free. You don't need any kind of third-party API to worry about. And if you don't have to worry about a third-party API or a middleware, I think that is where it solves most of your problems, because you don't need to have a very technical team to do these stuff. You don't have to spend money on training the technical team or getting the work done, and the maintenance is easy. So I think that is where the data sync process with no middleware involved eases the entire configuration and the sync process. And I think to add on top of it, Salsa very tightly integrates with the Salesforce duplicate matching rule system. So it automatically identifies what are the duplicate records that are being merged, and it gives you an option of whether you want to do that manually. So you will see all the duplicate records in your system, and you can do that manually if you want to. But if you want to automate it, it just goes through that duplicate matching rules and does that automatically. And I think duplicate records is one of the pains that every organization has, that how to remove it. And if you have a system which automatically removes the duplicates without your intervention, I think that is something that you watch for. And I think that is what Salsa helps you with, because it has made the entire integration process very seamless. Do you want anything to add to it, Rachel?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Now, when you integrate two systems, the entire philosophy behind is that we should be able to get the data that is lying between the two underlying systems. So it's a advocacy and a marketing automation tool. So, and Salesforce is a CRM. So you should be able to get the best data out of both these systems, so that you can plan your activities and you can get that deeper insights into your members, so that you can plan activities for them, understand them better, and have a better member engagement with them. So in the next few slides, you will see how we get those insights when we engage Salsa Engage along with Salesforce. So these are the kind of dashboards that you get when you integrate Salsa Engage with Salesforce. So in this dashboard, if you see, right, you have got an insight into your funds raising, right? What type of donor types do you have? So are they like, so these amber tells you the returning donors, and this blue in the pie graph tells you the new donors. So you can, and if you see this, you can have this insights for the last 30 days, for last 90 days, for 1 year, right? And that ways you can actually plan like how many new donors have you added into your system, are there any new donors or not, or how many returning donors do you have. So obviously you need returning donors because that means your members are engaged and they are interested in what you are proposing to them. New donors is obviously that your new sales initiatives and your new marketing initiatives are working well. So you get both the sides of the coin where you get a feel of your returning donors and your new donors. So if you see in this graph, the returning donors are less in the last 90 days that are giving you donations, and your new donors are more. So you need to work on how you can get more from your returning donors. What is something that you are missing that the donors are not returning back? So you can plan your kind of strategy by looking into these insights. Similarly, if you see, you can get a understanding of what is the source of your supporters. So where are you getting your supporters from? So if you see in this pie graph, there are different sources. So you have fundraising forms, you are doing petitions, you have signing up forms, you are arranging a lot of events to get your supporters. So where is it that you are getting most output from, right? So if you can see here, it's more of the manual activity that you are doing here, which is providing you more supporters. Then it's more of your sign up forms, which comes next, and then your fundraising forms. So you know like what is working for you, what is not working for you, and where you need to put in more efforts so that you can get more output from your supporters. And then obviously it gives you an insights of all the activities and how are they performing. So your activities can be sign up forms, fundraising, petitions, targeted letters, events, peer-to-peer, and based on different activities, you can see the total funds raised via different activities. So here you can see that for the last 30 days, your total number of supporters have either increased or decreased for different activities. So total funds raised via events, total funds raised via donations, that has actually decreased. Your total number of supporters have increased. Then total funds raised via P2P events, that has increased. So this is only possible when you have a mix of your CRM as well as this Salsa Engage. And I think these dashboards, they are very easy. As you can see in the screen, once you engage your, once you integrate your Salsa Engage with Salesforce, you get these kind of different dashboards. And these are one of the few, so you can have more of it. You can have a list of all the transactions that have happened, what kind of transactions are happening, what are kinds of funds you are raising for different activities. And I think this will help you identify what activities are actually working for you, what are the activities that you need to invest more, and what kind of strategies you need to involve to get your ball rolling. And then obviously you can go to each activity and see like what is the what are the type of donations you are getting? Are they just one time or are they just recurring donations? And you can get a feel of it. So there are numerous dashboards and reports, and these are few of them that I have shown it to you, but you can have many of them once you integrate Salesforce with Salsa. And I think reports and dashboards is something that gives you a deep dive into understanding your activities, their performance, how is your system actually connected with your members, what you should do to engage with your members, so and what kind of benefits you can derive from the system. So it's easy to integrate Salsa Engage with Salesforce, as I've already told you, and reports and dashboards look pretty good, and you can build more into it by writing your own reports and getting these dashboards to get more information. And I think apart from that, there are many other business benefits that Rachel will talk about in the next slides on what we can do and how actually the members and member engagement is enhanced using Salsa Engage along with Salesforce. So up to you, Rachel.
Okay, thanks, Neeraj. And two on that, there may be data that you have in Salesforce as well, and you're segmenting or running reports in your Salesforce database. Don't forget that can be pushed over into Salsa Engage, where you can contact those people. So whether you're going to email them, put them in a text message campaign, something like that. So even if you can run your reports in Salsa Engage, that's going to be all of your online information, their online activity. And then Salesforce, of course, should have both online and offline data if you're interested in pulling data on the offline information. So just a quick slide here on some of the integration benefits that you have with pairing Salsa Engage and Salesforce together. You increase or enhance your online fundraising. So you've got targeted fundraising, and optimizing strategy across the board. That's kind of the whole theme here, is that your organization should be taking a look at the activity from your supporters on a holistic view. So not just what they're doing online, but what are they doing offline? They're giving online, but maybe they're, fundraising with you offline, sending in checks, things like that. And you want to make sure that information is all being pushed into one unified platform. The peer-to-peer fundraising, like I mentioned at the top, is a really hot topic right now, especially as people still continue to do things virtually. We've had a tremendous uptick in the use of our peer-to-peer fundraising platform, which is great. So if you are a Salsa Engage client and you haven't dipped your toe into peer-to-peer fundraising, I would definitely take a look and see if it's right for your organization. The advocacy side of things, again, and some organizations may or may not do advocacy, so you may not have that module inside of your Engage account. But if you do and you don't have that module, reach out and we can get that added for you. So you can do things like targeted actions. Those are letters to the legislators that come from the supporters. Social media advocacy, you can actually tweet at your local legislators and at the state level and also at the federal level. And we do also incorporate the functionality to phone call legislators. We call that click to call. And then the last piece here, kind of the integration benefit, is to expand your digital marketing. And again, that's all being pushed one way or bi-directional to Salesforce or to Salsa Engage. So email opens, click-throughs, conversion rates, those are all the types of data points that are in Salsa Engage, and you can query on those. One of the things that you can do in Salsa Engage, it's not necessarily data visualization, but you can compare emails. So on that Insight tab inside of Salsa Engage, you can compare open rates between emails or email series, click-through rates, and also conversion rates too. So did they actually donate after getting the email, or did they register for the event after getting the email? So you can really expand in that regard, kind of having everything in one place, pairing with the powerful CRM that Salesforce is, and then bringing back those data insights to better target, segment, and communicate with your supporters. And those graphs inside of Salsa Engage are available to everyone. So you can go in again on that Insight tab and take a look specifically at your engagement, your fundraising, your advocacy, and you can build your own too with that query tool as well. So I think that wraps it up for the overview. Any questions, Vinny, or anything else?
Oh, unmute here. So I do have a few questions for you guys before we move on. And anyone that's joined us today, if you have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat box here and we'll address them. But a couple of questions, you guys showed a lot of great dashboards in terms of like looking at it from, what kind of business insights or organizational insights that you can have. It really truly says, this is how your marketing is doing and this is how your fundraising is doing. Well, how do you feel about the whole cleanup process of data? You've got to do some cleansing before you get to a true picture of what's in those dashboards. Do you recommend cleaning as you go with the existing dashboards that you have? Or do you recommend having perhaps a separate dashboard or separate report that helps you with some of those housekeeping cleaning efforts that is always there to do in your databases?
Yeah, I think for data cleansing, if you have not done your cleansing before integrating the two systems, we generally recommend having a separate data cleansing dashboard, because what it does then is tries to portray a picture where you can see what data cleansing that you need to do. So do you have inconsistent data in your systems, or are you actually facing duplicate records problems, or there is a data mismatch? So I think with data cleansing dashboard, what you can do is show it to your business and tell them like, these are the kind of issues that are there in the system. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to merge the duplicate record, or are there any legacy records that you think we should get rid of? Because most of the times that we have seen is when you integrate two systems, you carry a lot of legacy data along with the system, because it's a process that you have to do and you have not thought of it before, that out of maybe 1 million records, there are just 200,000 records which are valid. And most of the times, most of the legacy data that you have wasted time upon comes in your data cleansing activity and as a support activity. So I think if you have not done that before, we generally suggest having a data cleansing dashboard and a regular data cleansing activity, so that you can see what is happening and what kind of cleansing is being done, right? So it may be that you have 100,000 duplicate records or 1,000 duplicate records. So once the data cleansing is done, how many are left? So that kind of evaluation, I think, is necessary once you have integrated the two systems.
I would
Rachel,
agree. Yeah, so I would definitely agree. And it's always good to do it, like Neeraj said, have that as a kind of a built-in activity into like either your quarterly things that you do or every other month, even if it's just once a year. Somebody should definitely be taking a look at that data and making sure that, it would only get worse over time. So that's what I always remind myself. But another good thing to do, or another good time to do it, is when you're switching platforms. So if you are coming over to Salesforce, you're coming over to Salsa Engage, you're already going to be in the data, you're already going to be touching it. And sometimes those are services that platforms and consultants, agencies will offer to nonprofits, is to help them kind of figure that stuff out. So I would agree with that, and I would say, yeah, that another good time is when you're moving platforms, because you're already in the data.
Right. And that sounds like a good, my next question is about where do you start? And it sounds like just getting a handle of what your data is, How clean is it? Kind of doing all of that before you start. But outside of cleaning data, where does one begin before you press that sync button in terms of creating these dashboards and reports? Where should an organization start? Is there, should they just jump in there and give it a try and see what's there? Or is there a more strategic approach to like getting buy-in from C-suite or other departments within the organization?
Mm-hmm. I can speak a little bit to that. So one of the things that we do, it's also when you come on board, we assign you with a project manager. But even before that, of course, you would want to get buy-in from the higher ups, because they're going to be telling you, which reports they need, which data points they need, the plan is for the organization, and how you're going to accomplish that. And usually the people that we're working with are the actual, boots on the ground, people running the campaigns, sending the emails, building the forms. And so I would definitely get that buy-in, because it's important that they understand the type of work that you'll be doing and the amount of effort that it takes, because it does take effort. And one of the great things that the Salsa team does is you get paired with a project manager to help you start that process. So taking a look at what your existing forms look like, whether or not you want to brush those up or simply just kind of copy and paste those over into the Salsa Engage world. Taking a look at your email list. Is there a chance to reduce the number of groups or the number of mailing lists that you have? Or is everything coming over into Salsa Engage? And those are the kind of questions that our team deals with on a day-to-day basis. And we understand that our organization, nonprofit clients, don't deal with that stuff on a day-to-day basis. So we help you think through those things, ask yourself kind of these cleanup questions. At the end of the day, they end up being cleanup questions because you're already looking at the data. And so when we bring that stuff over, we hold your hand and kind of start you there saying, what do you want to keep? What can we throw away to start you off on the right foot with a clean database, an up-to-date database, and then you're set up for success that way.
And Neeraj, with your development hat on, that sounds like Rachel was talking a lot about just kind of the management of figuring out what executives need and what needs to be done. But outside of that, from before you start going in there and syncing, is there anything that you recommend doing in terms of maybe perhaps looking at the fields, making sure fields are named before you do the sync, that fields are named properly, or there's a naming convention? Any tips like that you want to offer?
Yeah, I think obviously first step, as Rachel told, is to get a buy-in from the business, because it's the business who understands the reports, who understands what kind of reports they need. And I think once we have got that, it's very important to understand the feed mapping between the two systems. So like contacts in Salesforce are supporters in Salsa Engage. So that is something that you should understand before trying to sync the data. So your date of birth may be different in Salesforce, and it may be a different format as well, right? So obviously you need to understand what is different, try to do a field mapping, and then start the process. And even when you start the process, what we suggest is do it in regular intervals. When I say do it in regular intervals, I mean don't do a big bang of the entire data. Okay, do it in parts. Pick up a sample amount of data and run it for your users. Maybe not in production directly, but in sandbox. So, and then get a buy-in from the business that the data, the sample data that we have imported or migrated is okay to go with. That will confirm that the process that you are trying to do or the field mapping that you are trying to do is accurate. Because if you do a big bang at the first moment, then what will happen is that all the mistakes that you might have committed would just spread to the entire data. And we don't want to do that. So we generally recommend that if you're doing maybe 10,000 records, do 1,000 records or maybe 500 records first. Test it out. And that testing should be done by the business users. So send them a sample of the data and get a approval or a sign off that this is correct. and then proceed with the next steps. That would actually avoid a lot of support issues coming after the integration, right? So you can actually prevent this from happening before the integration by maybe taking some more time to it. Uh, because one of the myths that is there with any integration or data migration is that it should be done directly on live because it saves time, and that should not be there, because if the system that the users are actually using, if you mess that up, I think you will create more problems for you. So always try that in a sandbox environment first, and then I think that is what Salsa recommends as well. That do all your testing in the sandbox and then only move it to production. So I think Salsa Engage team are quite proactive in educating the users as well. But sometimes things happen, and if they fall apart, I think then you spend a lot of money on just maintenance and life support issues, which you should actually avoid.
So think twice. What's the saying? Think twice and do once. Let's ask another question for you all. Now, the great thing about having these databases is that you've got everyone having access to the same information. You know, everyone has access to everything. But that is also everyone has access to everything, which cannot always be so great. I know that a lot of times working with organizations, they want to control who sees what, especially when it comes to reports and dashboards. What are some ways that you can control that, whether it's in Salsa Engage or in Salesforce? What do you recommend in controlling who sees what information?
I think you can define roles and permissions in your database. So every information that everyone accesses, he has a definite role for it. So suppose your sales manager may view certain reports which your sales team member cannot, or your CEO has access to maybe all of the reports that he can view which other executive team cannot. So I think these roles and permissions that are actually provided within the Salesforce, and they just need to be mapped. And if you have not done that, then I think you have just opened a Pandora of issues, because that is going to violate your GDPR rules, is going to violate all your organization rules and data breach stuff. So I think it's very important to understand user privileges, user roles before assigning anything either to Salesforce or in Salsa Engage. And I think Salsa Engage has its own roles and permissions that you can set up in your configurations.
Yep, that's right. The Salsa Engage platform does have its own set of roles and permissions that aren't related to the Salesforce side. And the reason for that is, you know, you might have people who have access to Salsa Engage, but don't have access at all to your Salesforce instance. So users who are in Salesforce, you know, don't have to be in Engage, and the reverse is true too. In Salsa Engage, we do have a pretty extensive list of roles and permissions too, all the way from no access to where they can't see anything, read only, edit only, and then depending on what they're doing, like emails and stuff, there will be additional permissions you can set, like they can send an email or they cannot send an email if you're, you know, working with an intern or something and you just simply want them to be able to write the email but not blast it out to your 30,000 list or something like that. And then all the way down to custom. So you can pick and choose specifically which roles, which types of forms, which types of emails that specific user has access to. So yeah, we get into the nitty gritty. I recommend having kind of the idea of what you want each user to have permission to do. And every person too should have their own login. Generally in Salsa Engage, we don't recommend people share logins because you just never know what could happen. And I'm sure the same is for Salesforce too. So everybody should have their own login and everybody should have permissions set as well.
Great. Well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So before we leave everyone, Neeraj and Rachel, thank you so much again for joining us and sharing your knowledge on all things Salesforce and Salsa Engage. But before you leave, are there any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our guests today?
Yeah, I think the only wisdom words would be that whenever you are doing any kind of integration between any two systems, we are not just talking about Salsa Engage and Salesforce. Just make sure that you have defined your process steps very accurately. So you should mention step 1, step 2, step 3. So step 1, as Rachel pointed out, should be you should have a buy-in from all the business executives and the business owners. So because they are the ones who are doing this integration, and you should, maybe if you have not done that, then I think you are not satisfying the ROI that is associated with this integration, because every integration involves a cost and as a motive. So the person who is paying for that should actually have a sign on it. So I think that is very, very important for me. So that is something that we should never miss. And if we miss it, I think then it's a problem, because you have not got a buy-in from the person who is actually the owner of that data, and then you are playing with that data. So it's very important to take the sign up from the owner.
Yep, I would echo that as well. Very important to get that buy-in. And then the other thing that I would say is, you should always be looking for these new platforms, these integrations. Keep your eye out for what's trending, what are other organizations doing. I know it's like an additional task on people's place that they have to do. Working with a partner like Aplusify, many of our Salsa clients have worked with them, learning new things, asking questions that they may not have otherwise asked before, and so learning new things. So I would just recommend everybody, keep your eyes open to the way that technology is integrating, especially as we see more and more of it in the future.
Well, thank you both, Neeraj and Rachel. Thank you for joining us today. It's great to hear about how cleanliness is not only for our house, but also for our databases. So thank you for that. And also being able to just have such great insight into all of the data that we're collecting. And Rachel, I loved what you said. Technology is changing so much, and there's so much that we can learn from each other. And that's mostly why we do these webinars. We love being able to share what we know and hearing from others as well. So if any of you have any other questions that you think about or need help with any of your Salsa Engage or your Salesforce issues, or would like to learn more, definitely reach out to either Neeraj or Rachel, or even join our both companies actually have a great resource of webinars and resources for you to tap into as well. We'd love to help you out. Again, thank you again. This has been a Aplusify Salsa webinar. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.